Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 35. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at Rethink Coaching. And today I have a special treat specifically for the real estate professionals that listen to this podcast. And quite honestly, any business professional or entrepreneur who's looking to make a difference in their business and life, this podcast is for you. I'm really excited to introduce my guest today, Colton Lindsay with WGR. And Colton, I'm going to give you a second to introduce yourself, but I just cannot speak highly enough about Colton. We met when I was with his over at the brokerage he's at Real, and then we worked together. Colton was my coach and has made a huge impact on my life. And I can say this podcast happened while I was coaching with Colton because he gave me the kick in the butt I needed to make things happen. So Colton, thanks for being here, and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me here. So I'm Colton. I've been in the real estate world since 2005, which is wild because it's 2024 now. And my first year in real estate, I sold 2 houses and failed miserably. I didn't know what I was doing, but what I did is after that is I got a coach, and here's what I realized: that first year I didn't have a system to follow. And what I say a system is okay, a repeatable pattern to create a predictable result inside a business. So I learned that system, went on to 20 something homes a year. A few years in, I was selling 75 homes a year. And throughout my journey, I realized there was always a new system to develop. There's always a new phase to move to. After that, I realized the system at 75 homes a year was different than the one that's selling 20 homes a year, because I started getting burnt out. I started feeling like, and you see this all the time, where I felt like I was working 29 hours a day, 8 days a week. So I had to start a new system. The new system was I built a team. Then from there, I built a brokerage. Then from there, I built a training academy. And then I built a network with inside a real brokerage, right? And so it's now developed into a multiple 7-figure brand over 19 years. And what the system is that I got confused on the way was the difference between being a business operator and a business owner. Because a business operator, I built the systems that I had to operate everything all the time, which meant I was always working and I was never free. Yeah. And I think most people are like me. They get into real estate for 2 things. I don't know if you did for this, but I got in, Tony, I wanted way more money and way more freedom with my lifestyle.
Yep.
I found out I could make more money, but then I didn't have the freedom of the lifestyle.
Yes.
So that was the real system that I realized in 2018 that I had to create differently. Yeah. And so that's where I'm at today.
Yeah. No, Colton, I love that, because I think, we both coach real estate professionals, and I think what I've witnessed over the decade plus that I've coached is a lot of people do get into real estate for freedom and flexibility. And it's 7 days a week if you allow it to be. It's 24/7 if you allow it to be. And it's funny how without systems and without a calendar and without being organized, you actually lose your freedom and flexibility, right? And I think that was for me as well. I started in 2001 and quickly moved up to 70 plus homes a year. First year was a disaster. We had 9/11. Everything I had in escrow canceled from September through the following February. And then got into the rhythm of running it like a business. And I had more freedom and flex once I started treating it like a business. And I think that's probably where some of the biggest opportunity lies for people who really do want to turn this into their freedom, flex, and making a lot of money.
Well, and it's significantly easier today than 2001.
No.
Because in 2001, I don't know, you probably had a Motorola flip phone, or like you had a Nokia that you're playing Snake on, something like that. You were faxing all your contracts back then, for sure. And scanning was even an option back then.
No, we didn't have GPS. We didn't have scanning. I had a pager, and you could only get onto MLS if you went to a broker's office, in which there was one computer for 150 of us. Yeah. So, now we get MLS on our phone. So it's changed a lot.
You got MLS on your phone. You have digital signature on your phone. You have all your contracts on your phone.
Yeah. You can rule the world off your iPad. And so,
awesome. There's significantly more tools, but what the key is, okay, you can have the tools today, but if you don't put them into a repeatable pattern to where you're moving leads through the system, you're not going to get paychecks at the end.
No, you're not. You're going to get frustrated, and that's where people get burned out. So Colton, today I want to talk us just a little bit about what's going on in the real estate world and how you and I have had conversations about there being kind of a change in order of the way things are going to be done for agents that want to succeed. Now, right now, there's nothing's really been nothing's decided, right, or settled yet. There's a lot on the books and there's a lot of speculation. But what I know is that the agents that I have the privilege of coaching, and I'm sure for you as well, who have had solid grasp around their business like a business are approaching this differently than a lot of agents who are out there without the support of a coach or a business or a structure. So what do you think that the implication is right now on the proposed settlement by N.A.R. on the real estate agents in the industry as a whole? What do you see as the biggest change?
Well, I think there's two things to look at of the changing order of real estate, and one is the macro, and then there's what you're talking about, what is the micro? Like, what is the day-to-day that's going to change? Now, if it moves through as it is right now, in my hallucination, the agents that are highly skilled in their communication, the ability to persuade and to influence, from doing that on a phone call, through a text message, to an Instagram video, to a face-to-face meeting, those that can really sell and persuade and come across as a figure of authority, they're, in my opinion, going to make more money.
Yep.
Because they're going to be established figureheads. Because we have to remember, even though realtor community is confused, so is the buyer and seller community.
Yes.
It's been so confused based on the message coming from the mainstream media and the narrative. And I don't even think it is the mainstream media anymore. You think about it, not many people, except for the older generation, still turn into Fox or CNN for their news. Majority of people are turning into podcasts or social media. And I think where realtors can get afraid, and if they don't come across as figure of authorities, they don't focus on this, they're actually going to frighten themselves out of business. I don't know that the ratio is going to change significantly. You've been in for 23 years, and there's always been a ratio of people that want to go at it themselves. There's always been a ratio of a flat fee brokerage or discount thing. And let's say that's a 90-10 ratio. And I don't even know if that's even accurate, but let's say it has been a 90-10 ratio. All right, it goes to 85-15 over this. What's going to happen come November is there's going to be the election settle. We're going to find out who's going to be president. This shit in the old mainstream media is going to disappear, and there's going to be a new focus on the old mainstream media.
Agreed.
What will be interesting is how the decoupling works, but that's an adaptation. Things are going to innovate. I was just looking. I haven't done an offer for a very long time, like where I've written one.
Yeah.
And I'm writing an offer on a house that I'm looking to buy. I'm 1031 exchanging to something. And as I was looking at it, I was like, man, when did they update the contract like this? And my point is, from 2020 or 2001, when you're starting your career, and 2005 when I started, the contracts are radically updated from then.
Completely. Yep.
You're always having to present a new thing, new adjustment, and so that's where it goes. And so my view is those that focus on the fundamental skill set of sales and persuasion and influence, and they come across as a figure of authority, they're going to rock and roll going forward.
Yeah, I agree. The direction we've been taking is create certainty. There's a lot of uncertainty in everything right now. And then what you said earlier is really true. As agents who are experiencing the fear around this are those that are just not prepared and they feel uncertain. And then you got the public who's uncertain. And if those two line up, it's a recipe for disaster. Now, if you as an agent can create a space of certainty for yourself and what you project out, people are going to be attracted to you, because that's our number one basic human need, is to feel certainty.
Certainty and significance. Those are the two things that these buyers and sellers, or agents, if you're working in the agent attraction space, they want to feel a sense of certainty, and they want to feel valued. They want to feel important throughout the process. Yet it's your skill set and ability to let them know. And now if you're uncertain yourself, that's really another form of confusion, and confusion is the enemy of conversion.
100%. It's going to portray, that energy is going to show up. And it goes back to what you said, the agents who are prepared and are practicing and really confident in their communication skills and are comfortable with the value they bring, I believe their business is going to go up. I think there's going to be some that exit, just as they always do during any kind of a change. But those who are really serious about this, like myself and yourself, this is our lifetime career, or part of it, you adapt. I mean, like you said, when I started Colton, I think our contract in Texas, because that's where I sold primarily, was 7 pages. 7 pages. And, now I think last time I looked at it, it was 14 pages. I used to work with builders who had a 1-page contract. And for those of us who are willing to pivot and accept it versus focus, isn't that funny? Versus focus on, what you put your energy towards, you're going to get more of. And if you focus on all of the things that you're uncertain of or the change and take your eye off of what you can do, that's where agents like you and I are going to take advantage.
You say 7 pages because so that's how long our seller disclosure used to be. And I've got 2 properties listed right now, and I had to fill those out. And they were 16 pages. I'm like, this is like an endless amount. I'm like, great, just read and list all my properties. I was like, dude, I haven't been in this property in probably 12 years, let alone like know these answers.
Yeah, things evolve, right? And so, Colton, I think, yes, it might be uncomfortable for a moment. Yes, we've got to change the way that we might have been doing things. For a lot of the agents that I coach, there's really not a whole lot of change because they've been very transparent about how this works. There might be a new form, there might be a new document, their broker might be instilling some type of extra precaution. But for the most part, it's really not changed.
I think the bigger change isn't because of the N.A.R. settlement. The N.A.R. settlement is noise. And this is the macro level. It is the DOJ is given heat to anything that threatens control from the current administration.
Yep.
Let's take a step out of real estate and let's look at the lawsuit against it's an antitrust lawsuit against Apple right now, which is insanity to me because the majority of people prefer an Apple device.
Correct.
The usability is just 10 times better. It syncs up better. It's a better product. And yet their view is that they're gouging people because they own so much market share. Why is it the DOJ is coming so hard on specific things like this? That's the question. And I don't know the answer, nor do I think we'll solve it. But you have to look at is realtors are being attacked right now. The way real estate agents do business is being attacked. So that's
100%.
why the N.A.R. settlement is so blaring. But the real changes are technology. The real changes are the economy. The real changes are, even with Jerome Powell talking about we're at 2.8% on the inflation and we still got to get to 2%.
Yeah.
We're not reversing all the fucking inflation we've had the last 4 years. That's not going away. This becomes a new level of expense for a human being in America. And so the shift is on a macro level. Look at what's going on with shipping and trade routes. Look at how things are manufactured in China. Look at the value of the dollar. There's so many on a macro level that you have to step forward into the new world of how things are done. And it's a technology-driven world and it's an influence-driven world going forward.
100%. And, with change comes opportunity. And I think that's probably the most exciting thing about this. And you're right, Colton. You look at like Apple. I'm an Apple user. I've got a Mac, iPad, I've right here on my desk, plus a Apple Watch behind me. It was by choice. And what I've said over and over to agents that I'm speaking to in groups is, the public, most of the public would prefer to work with us because if they didn't, you would see a vast more majority of for sale by owners. We've never forced anybody we've never said, hey, to sell your house, you have to work with the real estate agent. It's been by choice, just like I have a personal preference towards Apple. So you're right. We are under attack. And this is where we have to get together as a organization and just take the control back, control the narrative. So what do you see as would be the most impactful message that real estate professionals could be delivering right now to allow us to control the narrative?
Well, number one is I think you have to be understanding what marketing is. Marketing is about creating attention for your right fit client. And then, so if you're clear on, well, who is my right fit client? And there's a psychographic and a demographic of that. You then can do market research to understand, well, what do they need right now? What do they want right now? How do they like to receive that information? What do they hate about buying and selling real estate or in the real estate industry right now? What catches their attention on social media? So from there, then you can go into creating the marketing piece. Number one, I think the number one thing that all of you should be focusing on is double, triple, quadruple down on your sphere of influence.
Yep.
Become the broadcaster of relationship to your sphere of influence and your past clients. Number two is consistent content online, developed and created for who your right fit client is. Number three is when you're ready for this, because you got your message in, turn on paid advertising to grow and nurture a database. And then number four is do exactly that, incubate and nurture the database. because then from there you can redirect them into a sales cycle. This becomes the next most important piece that you can control, and it starts with contacts. You can control how many people you're talking with per day. You can control, hey, I'm going to spend from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. outbounding to my database. I can subsequent on, well, I'm going to start with sphere of influence. In fact, I think Tom Ferry's got a really good formula. I think they call it the 5-5-4. I'm going to talk to 5 new leads, 5 follow-up leads, and 4 sphere of influence. And so now if you schedule, and I think that's not enough, by the way. I think you could probably turn that into 10-10-8, and you're closer to 20-28 conversations. But the concept is like, let's get those conversations happening. And the formula then goes from sales when you're having conversations to appointments to presentations. And then from presentations, then you can close them. This is where the element, which I'm confused because I bet in 2001, you followed this formula with buyers. You had a conversation, you set an appointment, you gave a presentation, you got a buyer agency signed. Some way along the way, that went away over the last 20 years. I don't know why. And it went to this, hey, I think it's kind of the Zillow era where it's let's run out to the house and show them. And then you got states like California where people just stopped doing agencies altogether. Or you got states like Utah, even though you have an agency, they're putting it in once the offer is written. This is where I think this lawsuit really kind of went bananas, is there became a lack of transparency from the realtor to the consumer. And I'm not sure where this started, but from the get-go, I'd heard this phrase as a script, which is horrible script. I work for you for free. The seller paid. That's not true. You're lying to them. You don't work for them for free. You're signing a contract. You just might be getting paid from the seller, but the seller is saying, hey, we'll take care of that cooperative commission. But the fact is you don't work for them for free. That's a lie. No. It's a blatant lie.
It's a lie. The buyer brings the cash to closing. Ultimately, the buyer is paying for it, whether it's a concession or not. And so, Colton, you're right. We have gotten away from it. I remember when I ran my team and I had 5 agents on my team, as I brought new agents on, I would not allow them to go on an appointment on their own until they could read the contract to me upside down and from the other side of the table. Now, this was in the day when we had to do ink signatures. We couldn't do electronic signatures, because that meant to me you understood and could present confidently either the buyer agency information about brokerage services or a listing presentation or listing agreement. And now it just kills me when I hear agents, well, I just sent an overview DocuSign, and they don't even review what they're sending over. So you're right. We've gone from back in the day when I had to meet with them face to face to electronic signatures, which a lot of agents aren't even discussing the contract. They're just sending it over.
Right. So one of the things that I've done for years, even before digital signature and then during digital signature, is we had, like, let's just say it's a REPSI, an offer. Whether we were receiving the offer on our listing or we were presenting it and our buyer was signing it, we would always have an offer letter sheet that broke down the English language fundamentals, like earnest money, the inclusions, the things that they really care about, the home warranty, so that then they would see it in their email. And back in the day before we had Zoom, I'd hop on a call and I'd make sure they pull it up on their email in front of them. And that's how we would do it. Today, it's just the only difference is I'm going to make sure they're on Zoom with me. And I'm going to screen share that with them. And I'm going to walk through why they actually are signing, especially the buyer agency and the listing agency. Yep. Now, you might have a more savvy buyer that's like, hey, just send the contract over to sign. Maybe. But I still believe you should be putting 15 minutes on the calendar to review that with them and make sure it's very, very, very clear. Yep. How many times, and this is what pisses me off on mortgages, is how many times do I put a deal in my own self? I'll put a deal under contract where I'm buying and I'm getting the mortgage and I get 10 fucking disclosures throughout the contract. I don't even really know what I'm being disclosed anymore at that point.
Yep.
Because we have to slow down and say, hey, here's the update. Here's the thing.
Yep.
I don't know how to read all those documents. Why would we accept that our buyers and sellers can?
Correct. And I think, and this is something I've spoken to, and I know you have as well. We're kind of going back to the basics, but we're doing it with a new twist. We're using electronics and digital to help us be more efficient at it. And so I think that's the art that's missing, is being able to speak intelligently, have the conversation, do it effectively and efficiently through, DocuSign or whatever electronic signature program you use. But we've lost the art of communicating with people, explaining to them what they're doing. And at that point, if I'm a buyer and you just sent me over documents and I've got to read it on my own, your value gets diminished because you haven't helped me understand. And so you could be the best at showing me, but if I've got to decipher my own contracts, I've lost some value for you.
Here's the number one reason why I believe, because there's the fear is, and you see it all the time. I had a video that got like 42,000 views on Facebook Reel, which is weird, like Facebook out of all the platforms. You know what I mean? 42,000 views, 290 or 300 comments, something like that. And I had a lot of just like real hate comments on that. And, the hates that a lot of people have been seeing is like realtors aren't worth it, would go to a flat fee, realtor, everyone should have access to the multiple listing service, yada, 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 whatever it is. What I realized along that journey, it's because these people that's a capacity issue. So here's why I don't think realtors are going away. If you can get that, just like you, Tony, have stuff going on in your life. I know you've shared some of your things with a friend lately and some things going on. We all have these things going on. It becomes a capacity issue for these buyers and sellers. If you take a look at a buyer or a seller, they have way more things in their life besides making a move in their world. Now, all of a sudden, you want them to expect to handle a $1 million transaction on their own while they're not an expert. That's like saying, hey, I got to go build a house. I've never built a house before with my own hands. You want me to go handle that whole project? Is it possible? For sure. But I have to have the capacity in my life to do it. Some people will have the capacity. They will. And they're going to handle it on their own, or they're going to find innovative ways to deal with it.
Yep.
While other people, they still need your support. However, why would they need your support if you're not going to take away the load? If you're going to put, hey, you deal with understanding the contract because I'm so busy doing this other stuff, you deal with the processing of understanding this.
Yes.
They don't. That's where the value exchange won't make sense.
I agree. And I think, Colton, too, one of the biggest opportunities for agents is, and I coach to this, really, when you're in a transaction with a client, I prefer, and I did this when I was in production, I ended every conversation with, hey, Colton, here's what's going to happen next. Because I was creating certainty for the client.
Yep.
We hang up and we go work our magic behind the scenes, but we don't let them know what's going on. And so it is that continual adding value, explaining the contracts. What are you doing next? What's happening?
I built my business off of a lot of expired sellers. And the number one complaint they had is that I listed my house and then I never heard from my agent. It's a communication issue.
Yes.
And that has to be solved in the sense of, okay, you can't just send a text update. That's the go-to today, right? Maybe it could be a text, but maybe this person's auditory. Instead of a text, they need a voice note. Maybe this person's visual. Instead of a text or a voice note, they need to get on Zoom and see you and you do some screen shares.
Yep.
Maybe this person is auditory digital and they need to see some patterns. Maybe this person is very analytical and they got to comprehend the data. As you have to understand who you're talking with and communicate them effectively in a way that also is efficient.
Yes. And I think that's part of the system, Colton. When I was in production, we would carry 40, 50 listings at a time. And every one of my clients knew that on Monday by noon or Tuesday, depending on which category they fell into, because we had a lot of listings, they were going to get a report. And they had the choice if they wanted to review it over the phone, Zoom, it wasn't Zoom at the time, phone or in person or however. But it was all of this building value. They knew what I was doing. They knew I knew what was happening in their neighborhood, in the market. And I think that's what's missing today. When we talk about going back to the basics, it's about doing exactly what you said, communicating. And I found when I communicated once a week and they knew that every Monday or Tuesday, depending on which category they fell into, they were going to get a summary from me. It reduced the number of phone calls I got from them. And it also built confidence that they knew I was actually working to sell their house. So this is, I think, a great awakening for our industry.
And today it makes it even more simple because in that summary, I can attach my calendar link so they can schedule 15 minutes with me if they have further questions.
You got it.
You couldn't do that 10 years ago.
No.
Everything had to be quit. In fact, as I'm looking at some new properties, I was like, hey, Raiden, can you set this up? You set this up. And he's like, dude, you could just literally log in and schedule it yourself. And I logged in and I was like, dude, back in the day, I had to be able to coordinate between my assistant and the buyer and the seller and to make sure, because we started this before text message was a group text message was not a thing.
No.
These things evolve. So people now have mistakenly think, oh, well, because the text technology's there, they're not paying you to coordinate the showing. Yeah. If that were the case, they don't need you. I can do it on my own as a buyer. They're paying you to help you to help them comprehend the process of the decision that they're making,
Yep.
to manage their estate, because it's a big fucking deal to move, like
It
emotionally.
is. No, it is. I mean, it's funny, like when we do it on our own as agents, you realize the magnitude of a move. And sometimes we take it for granted what we ask our clients to do.
Like,
Yeah, it's a good eye opener.
well,
So
because you
Colton,
think about
oh,
it, like
sorry.
this home improvement, the whole thing
No,
is
you're good.
packing up. The average American has over 300,000 items in their house. And
Jeez.
what you're asking is for me to pack them, decide which things I'm going to keep and not keep, move them to a new house. And you're asking me to do that on top of the responsibility of being a dad, having to work, make money, get my kids to soccer, make sure that the groceries are ordered. Like, there's all of these things that go into play. And you have to take a step back and realize that these people are maxed out on their capacity. Your job is to give them some gas in the tank so that they can make effective decisions for their family.
You got it. Yeah, that's a big part of how we earn and keep our values. So, Colton, what would you like? What's the one best piece? You gave me so many great nuggets when we worked together. You were the one who pushed me with social media, and you kept pounding in my head, compound, compound, compound. It's going to pay off, and it's paying off. Appointments are coming in. But what would be the one piece of advice? And I know it's hard to narrow it down to one, but I know you're a smart guy. What would be the one most critical thing that you would recommend for anybody in our lane of real estate to do right now to position themselves so it doesn't matter what happens in July?
The biggest, most important thing that a person can do, whether you're actively working buyers or sellers or as an agent attractor and you're on the mentorship side, is you've got to be able to create a message where you are your own personal brand. Personal branding is the most important piece of your business going forward. And in a sense, it always has been. But think of personal brand as having your own news channel, your own media channel. It's maybe not going to be through a newsletter that you sent in the mail like it used to be. It's going to be a podcast. It's going to be Instagram. It's going to be YouTube. It's going to be Facebook. It's going to be where your right fit client is. And people have to want to be able to tune into that to get their information, because where they're not tuning in anymore, they're not tuning into CNN anymore. I mean, the viewers are very clear. Is it still there? Yeah. But tuning in to people that they can feel this right here, authenticity.
Yes.
Authenticity is the strongest level of vibration that's communicated without words. People can feel if you're genuine or not. And if you're not genuine, then they're not going to receive your broadcasting through your media and your personal brand.
I think that's brilliant, because, that's what you taught us really in working with you. And it's become really clear in the results that we're getting. And so, it works in every industry. And so I think that's probably the best advice you could give is really be you, be who you want to be authentic about it. And if I tried to be you as a coach, it wouldn't work. It might work for about 90 days, but then it's going to be hard for me to be somebody I'm not. And I think that's the same thing in the real estate lane as a listing agent, buyer agent, running a team, running whatever you're doing, a group, is to find that authentic message that you want to send. And then you have got to be congruent with it and step into it. When you get the opportunity, you got to have the video and the audio in alignment. So I think that is really solid advice for whatever.
And how you get that video and audio in alignment is understanding, how do I communicate? Neurolinguistic skills are extremely underrated right now, in my opinion, because it's something that you do with people versus to people. But what it does is it helps disrupt the pattern just enough so that you can create a new vision of possibility for the people that you're working with. And then what will happen is they'll start to say, hey, this really makes sense. I get it. I trust this person. And then that's where you're going to get the DM. You're going to get the phone call. You're going to get the text message. You're going to get the referral. And then they're going to say, hey, look, I saw blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, wait, by the way, are you thinking of making a move in the next year or so? Or who do you know that I should have on my radar? Those communications come up, and then you move them into your sales system.
You got it. And when you do that in a way that you're authentically you and you're building certainty, it's amazing how people get attracted to you. It becomes such an easier experience.
Here becomes the question then, doing it in a way that I portray certainty. Certainty, here's where I think the challenge with scripts are, for example, is they're not necessarily always conveying certainty, because certainty comes from within. So the question for your audience is, or whoever is listening to this is, well, where do I go create that certainty from within? And it becomes with your daily behaviors and rituals. Because if you're staying up till midnight, waking up at 9:30 a.m. the next morning, you're already behind in being able to take care of yourself vibrationally.
Yep.
All this authentically communicating to others comes from you first authentically communicating with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And we talked about this, Colton. Both of us teach this. I call it the thought flow model. It's a million different names where thoughts, produce feelings, create actions, and then you get your results, right? So that certainty comes from here, and that you're doing the right things to feel confident and certain about what you're doing. And if you've got noise going on in your head around your thoughts, that's your first opportunity to change things. It truly is, which is how then you get to show up as your most authentic self, because your thoughts are in alignment. So love this.
I'll take that step further. Sometimes the best way to get your thoughts in alignment is to stop thinking. I know that sounds weird, but what I'm saying is drop down into your heart space. And you drop into your heart space, well, what's important about this? What's the vision behind this? And that can ignite something from within so that you can have a clear vision for your future. And then you can say, hey, the way that I'm going to execute on this is to go add value and serve other people.
Yes.
Because if you're not serving these right fit clients, it's not going to go anywhere.
It's not. And it shows up. It really does. So Colton, I am beyond so happy that we were able to do this. I, met you years ago, and then we got to work together. You as my coach. I will always consider you my coach. And I just really appreciate you sharing your time with us today. I could talk to you forever, but I appreciate you taking the time and showing up the way you always show up as your authentic self. So thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you. You bet. Yep. Thanks, Colton.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.